never put me into my truck service company. He's always sending it to my competitors because I'm not there. So he faced a limit. He said, I have to change this. I cannot succeed in my trucking business as long as this guy has got the control who can reach me. So he set into motion sort of research to find out how to get rid of that gap. That's why you have automatic switch. He discovered the algorithm, the devices, technology, and the infrastructure. As a phone call arrives, that will be automatically routed without this gap. So he recognized that limit. He created the switch. So once he created the switch, this guy was irrelevant. So innovation has that basic thing to it. It will make whatever is happening. Ravi might have discovered, Ravi might have told you S-curves. Has he discussed S-curves?
Yes.
Okay, so basically people will resist in this phase, and then there is a phase where there is a lot of profit to be made. Then the late movers will come in, late adopters, and there is no profit to be made at that point because it has become flat. But anytime, I started with internet in 1980, right? Such a big resistance. What will this do? How will this work? Will this work? And even now you can see there's a lot of resistance to every new thing that happens. We don't want to accept them all the time. So that's what that curve is saying. Same thing happened with that technology, the technology of switch, automatic switch. Anyway, so people were working with this 640 kilobyte, 20 megabyte, this big machine, putting out a lot of heat. Today I could use it for a heater at home. That's all it's good for. But people are not happy with that, and it cost me $2,500 then. So they slowly said, okay, we need to shrink this, we need to do that, we need to do this, and then they shrink everything. So now, finally, we got the small devices that does more than what my big computer can do. So it has completely displaced one end to the other. And it is a yin-yang. I mean, it's a completely unpredictable things can come out of this. Some of you are from India, you would know that in India and China and Africa, you have a lot of land mass, but not enough technology. So as long as these phones were there, landlines were there, that was the only way of communicating over a distance. These companies were at a disadvantage because they couldn't lay the pipes, they couldn't lay the fiber. There's a lot of things. So then overnight, somebody asked, why do I need this wire? This is limiting my growth. So they created mobile networks. So if you go to India now, if you go to China now, everybody will carry better mobile than you are carrying, and they will do a lot more things. These are peasants. They have not gone to school, college, nothing. They use it as a torchlight, they use it as a radio, they use it as in every way possible. Because that's another telltale sign of innovation. It displaces one technology, and by doing so, it also levels the playing field. Every country now, from a communication perspective, is the same. All you need is a mobile tower and mobile phones. You can have fantastic communication. You don't need to dig holes, you don't need to draw pipes. Those are all advantages, not anymore. They are disadvantages now. If you have wires running through the ground, it's a hard problem to see. Anyway, that cycle of innovation creates data, and that data gets transformed. And once that data gets transformed, it's used in new ways to further accelerate the innovation. And enterprises are entities that have multiple groups, discernible groups, accounting, finance, procurement, HR, having to touch this data. and use it in many, many parcel ways to create a bigger thing. It's not that HR department is less than finance or finance is less than accounting, but they all have to work together. So the data goes through one area to the other area, or another way to say that is data might be generated in the point of sale location, but it's going to be touched, embellished, enriched in accounting, in procurement, and go through this. So that's what we mean by enterprise. And we also talked about what is data management, because it is about managing this life cycle of data. Now, let's look at this data. What has been happening in the last 30 years in different disciplines, right? How many of you have heard about high-frequency trading? Does anybody know anything about high-frequency trading? You have? Can you tell us something about high-frequency trading?
Computers using algorithms.
Okay, good, very good. Good starting point.
So they just using small changes. They make profits for small changes, but the speed is the key part.
Okay. So I'll go through different verticals, and then we will tie it back to enterprise data. Okay? Let's go through a gamut of vertical industries and see what has transformed them. And then we'll come together to see how that whole thing has affected the data part of it. We always want to come back to data management. But we want to see where is the source, what's the source, how does innovation affect, and how it is continuously changing. So one thing we said is capital markets. Is there anyone in this room who can give me an idea what has happened in the last 10 years in stock market volumes? What do you think was the volume when the 1987 crash? Let me ask you another question. How many of you were born in 1987? Okay, some of you were born. There was a big crash. The market crashed one day, and some 600 million shares were traded. And the Dow Jones fell down by 500 points. That was a big thing. It was in October 1987. Now in 2008, I was the CTO of a brokerage right above the exchange. So several crashes where it went 1,000, 2,000 points each day. The number of shares traded was several billions, not millions. So whenever you say one transaction, that might mean Pedro is selling IBM, Raman is buying, selling, he's selling, I'm buying. So this is two data points, right? Somebody sold something, and whoever is managing his account has to say, Pedro's account goes down by 100 shares, and Raman's account goes by 100 shares. There's a lot of information that's being tracked, right? At what price point, on what day, so much data is there. And there was only 600 million of them. Today it's billions. So you can see data has been growing. And because these are random events, right? If Pedro knew that perfect information, all there is to know about IBM, and that information is going to be static, right? If all of us had the same information, would anyone pay a different price? So we'll take a small example. You have a store downstairs, right? There are things being sold there. The sale price is known to you. Would anyone offer to pay them less or more in this room? Ever? Would you go and buy a can of Coke there, come and try to sell in the store for $1 more? You couldn't, because that is perfect information. If you had that information, perfect information, you're going to say seller, buyer, there's no need to negotiate price. We know the price. We will only sell at that price. Because in the capital markets, you don't have perfect information. Pedro will sell at a price point. Me, I would say the greater fool and say, oh, I don't know why he's selling, but I like to buy it. Because my information says IBM is a good buy. And there are so many of them. That's why even on a day when it's crashing, there is somebody selling, there is somebody buying, right? And all of that creates information. And that information gets into this capital market information space, and it's growing out of proportion. Now, he mentioned a key term. We only talked about people buying and selling, right? We are also using some logic. I'm also using an algorithm to come here and stand here and start screaming at you, or you coming here, sitting here, listening to my crap. There is some logic behind this. You're using some algorithm. You're achieving something out of this. You're doing this. But it's a human process. Whereas what he was saying, he was alluding to the fact it's an algorithm. It is non-emotional. It can run without tiring, right? You have an algorithm, and put it into a computer. It has no emotions. As long as there is power coming into it, it will be executed. And if you look at what is its input, and what makes it to go and buy or sell, it's the activity of buying and selling outside of it. So this thing, algorithm, goes and buys certain activity or engages in a certain activity. It measures the same activity, and based on that, it creates new activity. So another feedback. So all these HFT algorithms, StatOrbs, whatever you want to call it, this is a giant feedback loop. It's taking an amplifier, connecting into it, so everything that goes and gets amplified, again it goes, it's infinite, so it will never stop. And they're all racing towards 0 microsecond delay. If all of us run out, and we know that there are only 3 things that we can buy, 3 of that water bottle that's there. And whoever gets there first will get that water bottle. All of us will rush. All of us will try to tune our algorithm so that we can get to that first. How do you tune? It's data management again. So what I'm getting at, capital markets, without computer abilities, you cannot do anything. Without data management, you cannot do anything. There were companies which was writing all these numbers. If you go look up Wall Street history, there is a museum in Wall Street. If you walk down Wall Street, there is a museum. And if you go, and they will show you periodic table like boards in which they wrote what price something is being traded. There were 60 symbols. There are 60 companies being traded. Today we have 9,000 companies to trade. If we don't have efficient data management, can you do that? So data management is at the heart of capital markets. So let's look at another word. FedEx. Things like this. It's all about logistics. Logistics is about information being managed, optimized. They know exactly where this plane is, when it will touch down, and in what gate, and how that lobster can be moved from that point to another point. So if you go to Walmart, they call it just-in-time inventory, right? So what is that? There is a carrying cost. If you're running JCPenney, or if you're running one of those retail stores distributed around the US, and you know that come Halloween, October 31st, there is a lot of demand for chocolates. You could go in and say, I'm going to buy a lot of chocolates, and I'm going to store it in this place, and I'm going to distribute it around Ohio, every place I have a store, and then, but for the duration that it's not sold, you have your capital tied up in chocolates. So Thanksgiving rolls around, you don't want chocolates, you want turkey.